What if being single isn't a curse but a calling? What if the silence you keep trying to escape is exactly where your power is waiting? And what if the man you were born to be only shows up when the audience disappears? Most men fear being alone. But not because they crave company, it's because they're terrified of what they might hear in the silence. Terrified that the quiet will expose how far they've drifted from their truth. You wake up. No text from her. No buzzing calendar. No notifications begging for your attention. Just you and the silence. At first it feels like a void, but it's not. It's a mirror. One that shows you not how others see you, but who you really are underneath the noise. And that's when the ashe hits. Not an ache for love, not an ache for sex, but an ache to matter. To feel like your presence on this earth changes something for someone. Most men will reach for their phone at this point, not out of boredom but out of panic. They'll text the wrong woman, scroll through endless distractions, reignite conversations they should have let die. All because they've confused stillness with insignificance. Society has trained men to associate being alone with being broken. If no one is calling you, something must be wrong. If no woman wants you, you must not be desirable. If no one's depending on you, maybe you don't matter. That's the lie. But here's the truth. Solitude isn't emptiness. It's a training ground. The quiet isn't your enemy. It's your refinement. And the longer a man walks through this fire alone, the more powerful he becomes, because he stops needing proof that he matters. He starts knowing it. The man who chooses solitude, who doesn't run from the silence but turns toward it, isn't lonely. He's dangerous. Because while others are chasing noise, he's building substance. While others perform, he's becoming. And while others seek comfort, he chooses clarity. This message isn't for the man who wants to be liked. It's for the man who wants to be remembered, not for how loud he was, but for how solid he became. It's for the man who's done shrinking himself just to be accepted. It's for the man who's tired of the game, tired of chasing, tired of pretending. This is for the man ready to reclaim himself. 1. The truth in silence. Sit still for 5 minutes. No music, no phone, no distractions. Just you, the air around you, and your thoughts. Feel that resistance? That pull to escape? That's not boredom. It's fear. Not fear of the world, but fear of meeting the version of yourself you've been avoiding. Silence doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter. It doesn't distract. It reveals. At first, all the noise you've buried will come rushing in. That relationship you sabotaged, that dream you postponed, that promise you broke to yourself in the dark. Regrets surface like ghosts you thought you buried, and with no one watching, no performance left to give, you're forced to confront the man behind the mask. Most men run at this point, back into the arms of validation, back into busyness, back into relationships they don't respect, or friendships that drain them. Not because those things are fulfilling, but because they keep them numb. But if you stay, if you breathe through that chaos, something starts to shift. The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes a compass. The shame loses its power, and you begin to hear something underneath the noise, your real voice. Not the conditioned one, not the voice shaped by approval or fear, but the one that was buried under years of pretending. That voice doesn't shout, it doesn't beg. It speaks quietly, clearly. And it says this: you are still here. You are still breathing. You still have time. And from that realization comes the first step toward power. Not the power to control others, but the power to command yourself. That's the kind of man the world tries to distract. Because a man who doesn't need the crowd is a man the crowd can't control. When you stay in the silence long enough, you stop flinching. You stop apologizing for your presence. You stop chasing temporary fixes. You start building permanent foundations. Silence reveals the lies you've told yourself. But it also introduces you to the truth you've forgotten. You are not your failures. You are not your past. You are not the woman who left. You are the man who stayed. For the approval detox. There's a drug almost every man is addicted to, and no one talks about it. It's not alcohol. It's not gambling. It's not even power. It's approval. Every time you open your phone hoping someone noticed you, liked your post, replied to your story, sent a flirty message, you're chasing a hit. A rush. A quick spike of dopamine. And like any drug, it wears off. Fast. What makes approval so dangerous is that it doesn't look like addiction. It looks like connection. But it isn't. It's performance. It's manipulation. Of self and others. It's the habit of reshaping your identity just to fit someone else's preferences. You say yes when your whole body screams no. You show up for events you hate. You nod in conversations that bore you. Not because you're weak, but because somewhere deep down you fear that if you're truly yourself, that you won't be loved. And that fear? That's the trap. Because every time you betray yourself for acceptance, you reinforce the belief that the real you isn't worthy, that your truth isn't good enough, that your standards are negotiable if the room claps loud enough. But here's the brutal truth. The man who lives for applause will die in silence. So what do? You detox. You cut the cord between your self-worth and their approval. You stop refreshing the feed. You stop molding your voice to the crowd. You start asking, what do I believe, even if no one agrees? That question changes everything. At first it's raw. You'll feel the silence. You'll hear the doubts. You'll fear you're disappearing, but stay, breathe. Let it burn through the false identities you've worn for so long, because on the other side of that withdrawal is freedom. And when you reach that side, something remarkable happens. You stop texting just to feel seen. You stop explaining your boundaries. You start moving with quiet conviction, and people notice. Not because you shout louder, but because your energy speaks for itself. Solid, still, unshakable. The man who stops needing to be liked becomes magnetic, not because he's trying to impress, but because he no longer is. You. Don't demand respect. You attract it. Not through charm, but through alignment. Through the clarity of knowing exactly who you are and what you're no longer available for. That's the man who shifts rooms without saying a word. 3. Clarity through solitude. There comes a moment in every man's journey where everything goes quiet. Not just outside, but inside. No more pretending, no more noise, no more scripts, just space. And in that space, something extraordinary happens. For the first time, you start to see clearly. Not because life got easier, but because your mind got quieter. You step back from the algorithm, the crowds, the constant proving, and in the silence you hear a different voice. One you forgot existed. Yours. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's alignment. It's where you strip away the layers that don't belong, the goals that were never yours, the ambitions that came from pressure, not purpose, the habits that looked good on paper but left your soul exhausted. You begin to examine everything, not with panic but with precision. Who am I when no one is watching? Which parts of my life drain me? Who do I become around certain people, and do I even like that version of me? In solitude, you don't just find answers. You finally start asking the right questions. You say no without explanation. You create space not because you're avoiding, but because you're choosing. You cut ties, not out of resentment, but out of respect for your path. You stop surviving the day. You start shaping it. Your time becomes sacred. Your words become deliberate. Your presence carries weight. And most of all, you stop justifying your peace. Some people will misunderstand this version of you. Let them. Some will walk away. Let them. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to understand yourself. That's the foundation of a powerful man. Solitude sharpens your vision. It humbles your ego. It recalibrates your compass. And from that centered place, you no longer need to chase opportunity. It begins to orbit you because the man who leads himself doesn't beg to be chosen. He already has. If you've felt the silence lately, don't panic. That quiet space is not your downfall. It's your invitation, not to prove more, but to become more. So take this moment to answer in the comments. What's one distraction you're finally ready to release? Then hit like, not because this entertained you, but because something in you awakened, and subscribe to Stoic Voyage. If you're ready to stop chasing noise and start living with clarity, discipline, and inner command. Because the world doesn't need louder men, it needs deeper ones.